Oh, do you want to play your Githyanki to frightening effect? Well, join us today as we discuss running Githyanki with monstrous tactics. I'm so excited. Hello and welcome, heroes, to the Crit Academy. I am your host, Justin.
I'm your co-host, Ian.
And I'm your co-host, Brandon.
Today, we hope to inspire you with creative content that you can bring with you on your next adventure.
Yeah.
Now, it's worth noting we are recording remotely today as our studio is undergoing an exciting remodel. So we are
I just
super
excited.
Vacuum,
but hey.
We are super excited for you to see the changes that are coming. I am super stoked. It's been a fun project, and we owe it all to everyone who backs us as a Patreon or picks up some of our products or even just watches and shares our show. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, are you guys ready to talk Githyanki?
I am.
I can't speak it.
Gith is a very terrible language, I'm going to be honest.
All
right. So, for those that don't know, how about we really start with getting into what the Githyanki are and what they are about, and we'll go from there. How's that? Brandon, do you want to start us off there?
Yes. The top one about the upcoming release
Brandon.
of the much talked about Spelljammer.
Yeah.
What we're all excited for. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, me too. I love D&D in space. Are you nuts? Hell yeah.
It seemed appropriate to ensure that every game kicks off with a brutal beating from the militaristic Githyanki, the scoundrels of the Astral Sea. Yarr!
Yep, they're born out of slavery originally with the Gith race. The Githyankis are fierce psychic warriors that ply the Astral Sea and fight with their silver swords. Which, fun fact, they manifest with their mind.
Yes. They're some of the most iconic psionic monsters, right?
Yep.
If you don't know, the Githyanki and the 𝙀𝙭𝙦𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙀 were once just a single race known as the Gith, enslaved by none other than evil mind flayers, those brain-sucking bastards.
Yep.
They split into two separate groups after winning their freedom.
And they hate each other.
And they hate each other. Whereas the 𝙀𝙭𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧 fled to the, elemental chaos and became very introspective and monistic, the Githyanki fled to the Astral Sea and became xenophobic and militaristic bastards. They built citadels and armies, and from where they set out to conquer everything in their path. Holy crap.
Sounds
brutal
to me
bastards.
like Githyanki became their oppressors.
Something along that lines.
Yep.
So, for our topic today, we'll be focusing mostly on the Githyanki Knight and Warrior from the Monster Manual, but we do intend to touch on a little bit of the new stuff that came out with the newest release of the Mordekainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse with the Gish, the Kithrak, and of course the Supreme Commander. But we really want to delve into these really thoroughly and how we as Dungeon Masters would utilize these in a fashion that would allow us to get the most out of them from a combat's perspective, right? Yep. Everyone can introduce the lore however they want, but when it comes to running these dangerous bastards, you really got to do it right to really give that Spelljammer feel, because the Githyanki are just the pirates of the Astral Sea or of space and Spelljammer, right? So we want to run them that way. We want to get the most out of them. So maybe we should start with some of the more common features and traits that the Githyanki share. Ian, do you want to touch on a few of those?
Well, first and foremost, all of them have some sort of telekinetic feature. Like the warrior at the bottom of the barrel, they can do Mage Hand.
Yep.
But many other Githyanki can also use telekinesis as well too, on top of all that. And another common theme you see throughout most of the various Githyanki is some sort of teleportation. Like the warriors, for example, have Misty Step. As do the knights, but anything above the warriors, such as the knights, have plane shift, and a few of them have dimension door, and just a straight up teleportation ability. So
Right. So that's a really good, well-rounded mechanic to start with, right? So
yeah,
starting with the warrior, that's just a CR3. They start off at an armor class of 17. That is pretty high. That is a very high AC for a monster, I think, especially at CR3. They aren't wearing shields or anything like that. They're in half plate, which gives them quite a bit of durability on top of their 50 hit points that they have on average. Brandon, what are some of the other standout stats that?
Brandon crashed.
Oh, okay. We'll keep going then. So the other feature for I'd like to talk about is the fact that they have several strong saving throws: Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom. They are very good at shaking off those different sorts of effects, such as mind control, right? Poisons. And more importantly, like fear effects and stuff, and their traits represent that, right?
And looking at the various stat blocks, Con and Wisdom seems to be the big ones that just seem to carry throughout the stat blocks overall.
Yep, absolutely. So Ian already mentioned some of the other features that they have. One of the things that makes the Githyanki so iconic is their silvery greatswords. These are very unique. They're not just regular greatswords. They're very special and require quite a it's quite an honor to be able to hold and utilize one of these things. So moving through their kind of list of mechanics, well, you mentioned Mage Hand. So in a combat scenario, what do you think a militaristic tactical Githyanki would you do with Mage Hand in a situation that could benefit them that a DM could utilize?
Well, in combat, it would depend on the situation for sure. But I could easily see them using it to manipulate the environment to their advantage in some way, shape, or form. Such as like trigger traps, for example, is something I can see, for example.
Ooh, that's a good one. So, and also for those of you who don't know, part of the Githyanki is their mage hand is invisible. It's very much like the arcane trickster, Ledgermain, right? So, being able to use it to trigger traps and ambushes. Remember, they're a militaristic group, so they're going to have strategies. They're going to set up ambushes, and so utilizing invisible mage hand to trigger those is way more reliable than hoping your characters stumble into them. Correct?
Yeah.
Which I think is a big deal. It can also be used as a distraction. You know, using their telekinesis mage hand to lob objects and things to create a distraction of the for the player characters, can draw their attention away. Right. So there's actually a lot of good uses for that. Welcome back, Brandon.
Hey.
Dulcinea says, kind of fits the theme. The silvery swords are similar to silvery mist that dominate the astral plane. Absolutely. So we kind of talked about Mage Hand. Aside from just triggering traps and drawing distractions, I think that in a situation where you have the Githyanki, just having them use that to move things around, like drawing their own weapon and then having it float into their hand, really gives off a good thematic and intimidation feel, right?
Yep.
I mean, how would you feel if a guy just holds out his hand and the sword on his back just kind of levitates and detaches and floats over into his hand? To me, that would be a really fun way to try to intimidate the characters, right?
Oh, yeah. And I can also see it being used, even if it's just for flavor purposes, that being their go-to methodology for tossing alchemist fire or stuff like that.
Oh, yes. Using items like alchemist fire. That's another great one, right? Because dropping isn't really... I mean, dropping something they can do. Maybe they can or cannot throw it. I don't really know the raws on that, but at the very least, it floating over and dropping an alchemist fire, ball bearings, caltraps, all those things are very piratey too, right? Arr.
Yep.
All right, Brandon, do you want to? I want to kind of touch on some of their other powers that Ian mentioned with the the jump and Misty Step. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, the jump and misstep spell work wonderfully together.
Yeah.
Jumping up to their movement speed. Holy shit. God, jumping up to their movement speed and then teleporting with Misty Step and allowing them to close larger gaps than normal without the aid of the dash action, which is perfect for the Githyanki warrior and fighter, as they tend to favor melee combat or a psionic duel. Now, being able to jump your speed, is that what that just said?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that due to like lack of gravity, or is that just something they could do?
That's just a part of their spells, right? So Misty Step allows you to teleport so far, and so now a Githyanki can move up to their full 30 feet and then still Misty Step. So, or they have high strength, so they can leap off of their Spelljammer ships halfway between another ship and then teleport to the other side, right? So there's a lot you can do to close that gap. They're very good gap closers, but that also means they're excellent tacticians in retreating, right? Being able to jump in, deliver a devastating blow, and then teleport out without provoking an op attack allows Githyanki warriors to easily surround characters and jump in and out and avoid taking the blows themselves, becoming a stronger threat to the characters, right?
Yep. And and something we have to note too is like that's because from the fact that you can use a jump spell 3 times per day, the warriors at the very least. They get Misty Step, which you can use 3 times a day, and they get non-detection, which you can cast on themselves.
Yes. You just mentioned something that I nearly forgot there, even though Brandon just talked about it. The jump spell triples your jump, right? So they could, in theory, jump up to, 90 feet or whatever. But typically, you're still limited per turn on how far your walk speed. Is that correct? Or does the jump spell overcome that?
I would assume the jump spell would overcome that if you can, jump more than your move speed between using the jump spell. At least that's how we roll with a monk I've used in the past.
Yeah. So
just imagine this grayish green skinned creature just looking at you from 100 yards away, glaring. He's like, "Oh, what's he gonna do?" And he's just like, "Meow."
I mean, so now you're talking, the jump basically gives them 90 feet plus Misty Steps another 120 feet. They can close those gaps, which are perfect for jumping from ship to ship, right? And that, for me, that's one of the best tactical ways that I would use it. But there's something I also thought about that'd be fun, because most Spelljammer battles are going to take place in, say, something like like on a ship, right, in the middle of space. Basically grabbing somebody as a Githyanki and jumping over the edge and then letting go and just teleporting yourself back to the top would be awesome. What do you think about that?
That's just plain dangerous.
Especially if there's somewhere for them to crash. All right. So that's gives us a really good overlook of the kind of the start of the Githyanki's abilities. Ian already mentioned the non-detection spell, which is great for them to hide from any who seek to track them with divination magic. When you're doing Spelljammer, you're gonna want to expect to see lots of spells that usually aren't used for tracking, especially spying on characters. What is it? Scrying, right? That's going to be big in a big giant space like that. So it would make sense that they would have access, which means they can't be tracked, which means they can easily manage to gather, to ambush enemies that otherwise would be aware of any threats coming in. Do you want to touch on that a little bit there, Ian?
Let's see here. I'm sorry, which line were we at? I was bouncing back and forth between here and chat.
Oh, yeah. No, it's fine. Right here. I got you.
All right. Yep. And the knight, on top of that, can use the tongue spell, which allows them to converse and also give strategies in their own Gith tongue. And they can also overhear the strategy of their enemy, who may not know that the Githyanki can understand them. And that can give them insight and some high ground over the enemy, if you will, as they communicate with their allies.
Ooh, that's
good. And they can
good.
get the high ground already between jump and Misty Step, so yeah.
I see what you did there. So that's some really good stuff. We mentioned the silvery swords. Brandon, do you want to touch on that for a second?
The legendary silver swords, not silvery. The legendary silver swords that Githyanki carry are prized possessions. For good reason, too. They can not only cut, but deal psychic damage. What?
Oh.
Yep.
Combined with multi-attack, it can be very difficult to defend against. It can even separate a body from its astral projected form.
Yes.
Which means death, no matter how powerful they are.
That is a very... So people forget about how potent legendary silver swords are. When you're on the astral plane, you are in astral projection in most cases. It's not always going to be the case, but generally for player characters, astral projecting is far more common than actually sending their entire physical bodies there. If that happens, you just took the threat of a dreamlike sequence into, oh, your soul and body are now disconnected. You're dead. Sorry.
Well, with the Githyanki Knight, here's what it says for their Silver Sword entry. They do 2d6 plus 6 damage as well as a plus 3 greatsword when they wield it.
Just maybe they have what Morpheus said to Neo. I thought you said it wasn't real. Your mind makes it real.
Your mind makes it real.
Yeah.
I love
If
it.
you die in the Matrix, you die here. The body cannot live without the mind.
But anyway,
Really good.
and with the Knight, it says on a critical hit, if the target is using an astral body, as with the astral protection spell, the Githyanki can cut the silvery cord that tethers the target to its material body instead of damage.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
and
awesome.
let me bring up the astral projection spell quickly, because I don't believe it kills them. It just removes them from the astral plane.
I think it mentions in the actual book that if you're when you're astral projecting, specifically, you're held together by this tether, and if that tether is cut, you're dead. That's the words of another spell, so we can assume that since that is a projection spell, that rings true for anybody that's bound to that scenario, unless they physically plane shift there, which is another powerful the Githyanki Knight has. This is something that is
okay. Well, I found the line. If the cord is cut, something can only happen when an effect specifically states that it does. Your soul and body are separated, killing you instantly. Okay.
Yes. So that's a very specific instance, right? But I think as a DM, that should be something we should leverage, right? Because think about how terrified your players' characters will be in the middle of a battle when they have these tethers behind them. Not only do they got to worry about getting hit, but now they got to be concerned that something doesn't sweep by and chop that thing off.
And it does mention, too, that otherwise, if you're reduced to 0 hit points, the spell ends for you and you basically snap back to your body. So.
Yeah. So we're talking about plane shifting. When it comes to tactical battles, that's a big thing with Githyanki. They are intelligent. They're tactical. They will retreat when needed. They will reassess tactics and call an audible to strategy as needed. In the heat of a battle, a cleric, for instance, casting a bless spell on allies may instantly call attention to a very methodical Githyanki. They would likely just change targets in the middle of battle to weaken their foes, knowing that they're either health is being restored, they're being buffed by a spell, whatever it is, they're trained to identify those things. So in battle with strong enemies who is absorbing much of their attention, they can decide it's better just to incapacitate them and then go deal with something bigger threat, which means once again, coming back to kind of the grappling, I can see one Githyanki focusing on grappling and pinning down one that's being used as a shield, while everyone else does with the weaker ones. You know, a knight may instead choose to use telekinesis to lift a foe in the air, just leave them there, and then while they're flailing, and go and deal with a more bigger threat. Right?
Yep.
Brandon, what do you think?
I'm picturing a barbarian just flailing in the middle of the air, being so pissed it can't do anything.
It's like the Hulk saying, "I'm gonna smash you!" Not while you're stuck up there, my friend.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Brandon,
Do what?
do you want to touch a little bit more on the Githyanki there?
Oh yeah, the fact that their strategy is everything to the Githyanki.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that they are not mindless creatures, but instead are well organized militaristic soldiers. They're a militia.
Yep.
They will plot ambushes, traps, and other ways to gain the upper hand. When it comes to a threat of a losing battle, they will even retreat. The knight's ability to cast plane shift easily allows them and up to 7 other allies to teleport to other planes out of danger. It's up to 7.
Yep.
Ready to return later? Better prepare for your characters. I got the wrong stat block.
So because they have the plane shift power for the knight, and they're losing, they will just retreat and come back later. And that is more of a danger to the characters than not, because now they know what the characters can do, and they can better prepare. They can change up their tactics accordingly. And I think that is super important with spacefaring pirates, is they're not going to fight to the death. They're going to jump back on their spelljammer and shoot out and then stalk you and come back later. And you know what they're going to do? They're really smart. They're going to do it when you're already in the middle of something else.
Yep.
Especially if you've got something they want. And that right there, that's the big thing. First of all, they hate you because you're different. Secondly, they hate you because you're not What?
That's fucked up.
Yeah, they hate you because you're different. They hate you because you probably have something they want, and they hate you because you're just in their area, right? In their territory. Yep. They're very douchey like that and are trying to conquer everything. So they should play like that, right? Especially with access to things like plane shift and dimension door with like the Gish that allows them to dart around and retreat and send messages to other people to share the information about the characters. That makes them a bigger threat than just their CR would indicate.
Now, it's also worth mentioning too that the silver swords, they count as +3 great swords when the creator are using them. And it's also mentioned that they basically picture each sword as a relic. And if anybody kills a Githyanki and goes, well, it's mine now, the Gith will hunt them down until they retrieve those silver swords back because they value them that much.
And you're right on spot there, Ian, that when it comes to those swords, they are amazing plot hooks because you can literally give a +3 legendary sword to somebody with the silver sword, and then they can dig in the knowledge, or they just keep getting attacked, right?
But it's not a +3 if anybody else grabs it. It's only a +3 for the Githyanki that makes it.
Really?
It does outright say that in their stat block.
What?
I thought that there was a detail in the monster manual that actually said that it's still a magical greatsword for anybody that uses it.
Okay, well, what it says precisely is a silver sword is the equivalent to a greatsword and takes on the price of +3 greatsword in the hands of its creator.
Okay. So it's still okay. All right. Moving back into the combat aspect, what are some other ways that we can really get the most out of the mechanics that we've been given by the Githyanki?
Well, as one of our people in chat already mentioned, the knights and the warriors, they ride red dragons.
Yes, riding red dragons. That takes the battle to a whole new level now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I actually recall one time in a 4th edition game, we were basically in a siege scenario, and one of the creatures that were attacking on the opposing army were Githyanki, who were riding packed dragons. Mm-hmm. And my Jack Wagon, a barbarian, decided to jump on one of the dragons, kill his rider, and try to tame the dragon. But he did not realize that it was a packed dragon, and only a rider it bonds to can actually ride it. And it also apparently mentioned in stat block, in 4th edition anyway, that when his rider dies, it teleports back to the astral sea. So my barbarian teleports to the astral sea.
𝙀𝙭𝙥𝙧𝙙𝙬𝙀 over here breaking the game.
Oh yeah? How so?
Asking the question, would that still work if the handle was wrapped in the tan skin of its creator?
Probably not.
I don't think so.
A people leather handle? Yes.
But
Gith leather.
The thing that I think is interesting about these creatures is they are everything that is typically evil. They literally strive to conquer, right? These warlike Githyanki, they are brutal.
Yep.
Even after everything they went through with the bloodshed and everything, they are brutal creatures. So as DMs, when we're playing them, try to play them that way. Make them be careless. Make them be not careless, thoughtless. Make them so that they don't care what they do, but make sure their motives are clear. Whether it's just conquering and stealing, whether it's servitude and trying to enslave other people, or maybe it's just a pure desire for vengeance or expanding their area. They're big on slavery, which is funny considering they were slaves. But all that should tie into the way you unfold them, especially when using tools such as manacles or something, right?
Also, you know my groan and why.
I gotta say that they're ballsy too.
Yeah.
Because I believe the reason why they can ride red dragons is because they made a deal with Tiamat.
They did.
They did. They made a pact with her.
And that's why they're able to have the Red Dragon friends.
So the question is the red dragons, are they particularly friendly, or they just have to do what they're told by their mother, right? Tiamat's the red dragon mother. I think that's true. And so, with is it Vlaakith, the Lich Queen? Who's actually,
yeah.
I think she's the leader of the Githyanki, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And
who takes over when the current leader dies for one reason or another.
Yep. And I think that as dungeon masters, we can lean into some of that stuff, right? Whether they're raiding an area because she said she's got her own agenda, maybe they don't know about it. But whoever, because I think Gith, so the Gith actually sought out allies during the uprising of the Illithids and stuff, and so all that is stuff that's constantly taking place in the spacefaring realm of Spelljammer. And so you want to make sure that that's brought to life. You can have encounters of these without having encounters. Imagine your characters are on their first Spelljammer ship and they're coming, up to a new plane or something. And in the distance, there's a giant nautiloid being piloted by mind flayers, being chased by, Gith on the dragon back and on their own Spelljammers.
Get back here, bitch!
It's worth noting that in many of the stat blocks for the Githyanki, they do go out of their way to mention that when you're on the Astral Sea, you do not age. So they have military academies on the mortal realm, so their children can age to adulthood. And it's also worth mentioning that the red dragons they ride earlier like to participate in raids on the mortal plane as much as possible so they can get older and stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Githyanki that they only serve the Githyanki usually only during their younger years, and they are dismissed when they reach adulthood and are replaced by younger dragons. So that kind of answers that question a little bit there.
And the Githyanki have, I believe, a tradition where when they get the coming of age, they become an adult when they bring the head of a mind flayer to their tribes.
Ooh, that's nice. Now, if you guys are looking to play some characters out there, some Githyanki races, that certainly sounds like an amazing motivation to go out to me.
And it's also worth mentioning, too, that in 5th edition, they give a lot of lore for the Gith in Mordekai's Tome of Foes. So that's just worth mentioning, just because A, is a good book to begin with, and B,
absolutely.
Unfortunately, you can't, unless you already own it, you can't buy it on Beyond anymore, unfortunately, but that's another topic unto itself that I won't get into. But
Dulcinea makes a good point, and I think this is something that should be very wary to every dungeon master. On the Astral Sea, movement isn't determined by typical movement. Because you can move in 3 dimensions, it's actually determined by your intelligence score. So all those people who dump their intelligence are going to feel it. Like, why am I moving like I'm moving through molasses? Anyways, when it comes to the Githyanki, in order to really get the most out of it, you want to utilize their high mobility. You want to utilize their ruthlessness, use their trickery and their tactics to gain as much information on the characters, prepare ambushes and wait. I mean, I can totally see a group of adventurers on their own Spelljammer traveling and entering an area where their Spelljammer just goes and stops working.
Hey, what's going on?
And then being ambushed by, red Githyanki on Dragonback, who are lighting the area on fire first, burning the surface. So now you've got a hazardous terrain, then jumping on to deal with the characters and leveraging that, weakening them, softening them up before they actually engage them. Because really, what the hell are your characters going to do when they're got Githyanki on Dragonback flying around, blasting them with, fire and throwing, pebbles and shit at them? Because, they get the telekinesis hitting like trash.
Oh, Andrew, that's gnarly.
Yeah, both the Knight, the Warrior, and, let me see here, the Commander don't have range attacks. But considering all their teleportation crap they can do, go figure.
Well, they also have telekinesis, right? Anyway. So they can actually just launch random objects. And I think that's another thing that you can really lean into. There's a lot of random shit floating in space, right? At least that's what we say. So can you imagine just somebody flying around on Dragonback and pointing to an asteroid, which turns out just to be the skull of a dead giant, just lobbing across, streaking and smashing into the hull of the Spelljammer you're on?
Yep.
So there's a lot
I also
to
looked
do
at
there.
just for the heck of it, but in 5th edition anyway, I do not see an official step like for Hlokith, who is once again the undead Lich Queen of the Githyanki. So I guess you just be using a Lich stat block, but hey.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other tactical things you think could really get the most out of some of these features, Ian or Brandon?
As we touched already, they can hit like a truck and melee. All of them. They can teleport, which also means they can GTFO if needed. And as we firmly established, between the dragons, the silver swords, and a few other things, you can easily see the same Githyanki over and over again and have them be ongoing enemies that you have to deal with.
And you make a really good point there. So I can totally see them first encountering a specific Githyanki who is just a warrior. And then they fight and they lose, they retreat, they come back as a knight. They fight, they lose, they retreat, they come back as a Gish. And this could, you're right on, this could be an ongoing encounter, one that slowly develops a relationship with the characters. That means learning what they like, what they don't like, their strengths, their weaknesses, and talking a lot of terrible shit about them.
I got a question about the Kethyanki here. They're little silver swords. When you kill one, if you take one, they're going to chase you down and try to get it back. Do they know the location of that sword?
The assumption is they know somebody died and they will find out. It's just like tracking anything down. They'll dedicate the resources, as far as I understand it, to locating that relic.
And there are locate item spells too, so that seems not out of a possibility.
And that comes back to like the scry mechanics and stuff we were talking about too. You know, there are a lot of spells that don't get as much use that I feel like will be a big deal when you're doing Spelljammer, because it's not like you can say, where do you go? Oh, I'm going to pass the big giant dragon spine mountains and hang a left down the valley. And it's right there. No, it's big empty space, you know?
Yep. You know, I can actually picture a individual Githyanki that you form a enmity with, eventually them becoming frenemies, if you will.
Frenemies.
Because I can easily picture like the party is in a spot, but then the Githyanki's hunting you down, pops out of nowhere, and kills your enemies, helping you out to bail you out. Just them saying, "No one kills you but me."
Ooh, I love that. Can you? So they're Githyanki's using their connections and their spying and stuff, and you're in trouble. Your character's getting their butt kicked, and then you think, as out of nowhere, this Githyanki ship you recognize, this Spelljammer ship appears out of nowhere, and you're like, shit, we're getting our asses kicked already. Now Dipstick shows up and he helps you, then kicks you in the face and says, you're mine, like Vegeta does to Goku all the time, right? Nobody kicks your ass but me. So I think it's all wonderful. And there's lots of good stuff, good things you can do with this. And with Spelljammer coming out, you're certainly going to want to lean into this race of creatures and their lore and all that stuff, or replace it with your own lore. That's fine too. But these are what make the Spelljammer such a fun setting. These alien space pirates. I'd like to point out that I have played Baldur's Gate 3, and you get a Githyanki lady, and she's a total bitch, and I kill her off every chance I get, because she drives me nuts. She's rude and don't command me. I'm the one in charge. Yeah, she pissed me off. I was like, I'm just gonna roll a fighter myself. So yes, but the game captures that sort of persona very, very well. I think.
And the Githyanki no fireball. Just saying.
Yeah, you got to blow Spelljammers out of the air, sky, space.
Yep.
Astral plane. Anyways, I think that'll do it for our main topic today, Monster Tactic Githyanki. So happy hunting, heroes. Yep. All right. Before we move on to our unearthed tips and tricks, we want to take a moment to talk about Murder in Shielding Peaks. It's a high up and unforgiving murder style adventure. In it, the characters are accused of murder. The characters are accused. And that means that they got to either just accept it and wipe out the village, which is, I guess, a thing some parties members might do. But if they're really heroes, they're going to try to understand why they're being blamed and what really happened, right? So this 5th edition adventure is meant to be played over a single or maybe a 2-night session. It's a tier 2 for 3 to 5, where it starts out deceptively simple murder mystery, but quickly unravels into something very dark. I don't know about you guys, but I love murder mysteries. And I don't think enough of them are done. While I feel it is a little niche, it's something that's unique and fun enough that you got to try at least a couple of times every once in a while.
Now, I've not read this adventure, but I'm kind of curious to see how it's set up, because I can easily see some spells disrupting the entire thing from the get-go.
Oh, yes. And that does get addressed.
Good.
So if you want to check this out, head on over to rebrand.ly/murderinthepeaks. This Kickstarter is looking juicy and I think is mostly already written. So, all right, check that out and let me know what you think.